Where do Canada's political parties, where do the leaders vying to be the Prime Minister of Canada, where do each of them stand on the situation unfolding between Israel and the residents of the Gaza Strip? Good evening. My name's Gordon Causey. Good evening, good morning, good afternoon, whatever it happens to be when you're watching this video. I'm going to be walking through where each of the main parties stand in terms of the situation between Israel and Gaza. I will invite you to like, share, subscribe to my station, and to fill the comment field. If you disagree with anything I have to say, if you agree, questions, comments, queries, they're all welcome down below. You can challenge me, most certainly. At any rate, I'm going to be fixating on the three main parties in English-speaking Canada. I'm not going to be dealing with the Bloc Québecois, which only run candidates in the province of Quebec. I am a resident of the province of Ontario. You see the picture over my shoulder. It's a painting depicting the CN Tower as it would have looked, looking south from King Street, 1978 or thereabouts. So I am an Ontarian, mais je parle français, mais ce video c'est totalement en anglais. This video is all in English. And the three main party leaders are, in no particular order, Jagmeet Singh is the leader of the NDP, the New Democratic Party. Mark Carney is the leader of the Liberal Party of Canada. And then there's Pierre, who is the leader of the Conservative Party of Canada. And I think there are distinct differences between each of these individuals and their party's stance on the situation unfolding between Israel and the residents of the Gaza Strip. I'll start with Jagmeet Singh of the NDP. He is the only one who is using the very pejorative and loaded word. He's using the word genocide. He has said on numerous occasions that what is taking place with Israel's reaction to the October 7th attack of 2023, when militants with Hamas and apparently some other groups as well launched something of an invasion on Israel, killed, widely reported that somewhere in the neighborhood of 1,200 Israeli citizens were killed, men, women, and children, and somewhere in the neighborhood of 250 hostages were taken into Gaza. And then Israel responded, and the response has been devastating. I actually, before doing this video, I didn't look up the latest number. I don't know whether it's 30,000, 40,000. It's in that neighborhood, though, the number of Palestinians who have been killed in fighting between Hamas and Israel. And Jagmeet Singh with the NDP is the only one framing this as a genocide. Mark Carney, I'll move to him next. Mark Carney is, I refer to it as sucking and blowing. It's talking out of both sides of your mouth. This is a contentious issue, and Mark Carney does not want to lose the support of those who are perhaps Islamic and supportive of Hamas. While at the same time, he doesn't want to lose the support of Jewish communities, and there are important constituencies in major cities like Toronto and Montreal. Montreal, St. Urban Street, Toronto, Bayview, Bathurst, predominantly Jewish areas. He doesn't want to lose that support, but he doesn't want to lose the support of those people who are sympathetic or perhaps Islamic or who are sympathetic. And so he kind of talks both sides on the issue. So it's hard to know exactly where he stands. He's trying to be all things to all people. That is my take. Pierre Poilievre, by contrast, is adamant and is very vociferous in his support for the nation state of Israel to, one, exist. He supports the right of the nation state of Israel to exist. And obviously, if you support Israel's right to exist, then you support their right to defend themselves. So it's a contentious issue. Those for whom the situation in Gaza is top of mind and who do regard what's taking place there to be a genocide, then I think the choice is obvious. Is if that's the end all and be all for your voting intention, well, then Jagmeet Singh is the only one who is using that term genocide to describe what is happening. Neither Mark Carney nor Pierre Poilievre does. Mark Carney tries to play both sides. He's trying to be in the middle, the mushy middle, trying not to annoy anyone. And as a result, in a fashion, what he does is he angers both sides. And Pierre Poilievre, by contrast, again, is probably the most vociferous proponent of Israel's right to exist and for its right to defend itself. Now, I'm going to provide some background and give you my opinion on the situation in Gaza. Myself personally, I do not think it comes anywhere close to qualifying as genocide unless and if we are going to call that if that constitutes a genocide, then we better take a serious look at history and start to rewrite it, because then genocides have happened regularly, and Canada has been involved in genocides. I'm speaking about specifically one incident, Dresden, in the dying days. I think it was in March of the year 1944, when Allied forces bombed the living crap out of the industrial area in Germany known as Dresden. Carpet bombed it. Nobody knows how many people were killed, and this was just over 1 or 2 days. Most most estimates say at least 30 to 40,000 minimum civilians were killed during that bombing run. However, some estimates go as high as 100,000. And again, this was just over a couple days of carpet bombing. And the residents of Dresden were civilians. They were working in the arms industry for the Nazis. And we're talking about we're talking about older men incapable of fighting, incapable of fighting the war for the Germans. And then we're talking about women and children. And somewhere, 30, 40,000, maybe 100,000 killed over just a couple of days. And then obviously you have the American bombing of Hiroshima and Nagasaki, when hundreds of thousands of people were killed with those two bombs. And then if what's happening in Gaza is genocide, well, then Dresden was genocide, Hiroshima, Nagasaki, they were genocide as well. If you look at the situation with Canada's own native population and the manner in which it was decimated, that has been deemed already by some individuals as a cultural genocide. But I think we would have to expand it and say it was an actual genocide, because Gaza, the population is in around 2 million, and it's a war, like as what happened in World War II. And it's a very difficult war to prosecute because it's an incredibly dense area, and Hamas is not stupid. Hamas knows that they can put their military infrastructure, their rocket launchers, their mortars, and any of their military assets they can place in and around civilian populations, be it in schools, hospitals, refugee camps, and then they are in basically what amounts to a no-lose situation. Either Israel does not attack because, well, that rocket launcher is next to a hospital, and if we take out the rocket launcher, we're also going to injure civilians, so they cannot fire, and then Hamas their military assets, their rocket launchers and such, are safe from attack. Or conversely, Israel can say, well, what can we do? We can't allow rockets to keep threatening our population. We're going to take it out. Consequences be damned, like we did in Dresden when perhaps as many as 100,000 German civilians were killed. And they can take out that rocket launcher, the mortar, the whatever armaments it is that Hamas has, and then when civilian casualties result inevitably, then Hamas can win the propaganda war, and they can say 60 people were killed in this hospital, near this school, near this refugee camp. Why do you have your rocket launchers there? Now, some will claim, no, they wouldn't do that. Hamas wouldn't do that. That would be wrong because it is a war crime to place your military assets around to use a civilian population as a shield. That is a war crime. Uh, and some say they would never do that, but we're talking about an organization, Hamas, which kidnapped babies. They took babies hostages, women and children, babies hostage. So, an organization that would take babies hostage and drag them into tunnels and keep them there for months and a year plus, would they place military assets near a hospital, a school, a refugee camp? I have no problem believing that they would. And so it's a horrific situation. Now, what is the solution to the situation? I don't know. I don't think anyone knows. I don't think Mark Carney knows. Mark Carney, like so many, likes to propose this wondrous solution, two-state solution that has been talked about forever. Well, in 2005, Israel completely disengaged from the Gaza Strip. You have to understand, how did Israel come to occupy the Gaza Strip? How did it become part of their territory? What happened was Israel was created as a nation after almost a year-long war between the Jewish Palestinians and 5 invading armies of the Arab League. Everyone living in what we call Israel today, prior to May 14th, 1948, everyone living there was a Palestinian, whether they were Jewish, Muslim, Christian, Druze, whatever the case. They were all Palestinians. And it was the British mandate. They were under British rule. Britain was the colonial power ruling over the residents, and the residents of that area were all Palestinian. But then Great Britain announced that it was withdrawing. We are leaving the mandate. We are leaving the British Mandate of Palestine on May 15th, 1948, and it's no man's land. There's no governing authority at that point. Once they leave, there's no prior to the British being there, it was governed by a colonial power in Turkey, the Ottoman Empire. Before the Ottomans had it, there were periods of Mamluk Egyptian control. They were the colonial power. There were periods of European control during the Crusades. There were periods of Islamic control when the Arabians ruled over it. They were the colonial power. I should note, Arabians come from the Arabian Peninsula. The nation state of Israel or Palestine, whatever you want to call it, that is not part of the Arabian Peninsula. Likewise, like Turkey or Egypt or whoever has ruled over this area. So on May 15th, 1948, the British disengaged and there was no governing authority in this region at all. And then that's when war broke out. And about 700,000 to 800,000 Jewish Palestinians who were living in the land stayed and they fought in an attempt to establish a Jewish nation state, which would eventually be called Israel. But before that could happen, they had to defeat 5 armies. The Egyptians sent forces. Saudi Arabia sent forces under the command of the Egyptians. Jordan, Syria, and Lebanon, all 5 nations, with those countries back then in 1948, they had populations combined of over 30 million people. And the Jewish population, men, women, and children, was 7 to 800,000. And after that war, it lasted from May 15th, 1948 until March of 1949. And then the Jewish Palestinians signed armistice agreements with those 5 invading nations. And peace came to the region finally after a nearly year-long war, and something called the Green Line borders were established. And the Gaza Strip, what Jagmeet Singh is calling a genocide, the Gaza Strip was under the control of the Egyptians. It was Egyptian territory. And many of the people living in Gaza have Egyptian names. They are Egyptian. Now they refer to themselves as Palestinian, whatever. You know. So Gaza is part of Egypt, and it remained that way until 1967. And then what happened is another war ensued. That first war, that war from 1948 to 1949, the Israelis refer to it as their war of independence. For many Arabs, it's referred to as a Nakba, a humiliating and catastrophic defeat, because 5 nations invaded to try and secure territory for their countries, and Israel still managed to secure its place in the world. They didn't win everything. They didn't win the Gaza Strip, and Jordan captured the western bank of the Jordan River and East Jerusalem, and they added that territory to their own country. They said, this is Jordan now. This is Jordanian territory. Egypt grabbed Gaza and said, this is ours. This is Egyptian territory. The remainder fell to the Jewish Palestinians, and they established the nation state of Israel. But this was a humiliating and catastrophic defeat. Many of the Islamic or Muslim Palestinians had fled. The Jewish Palestinians had stayed to fight, but many of the Muslim Palestinians fled. They went to Lebanon, they went to Jordan, they got out of Dodge, with the belief that once the war was over, that the 800,000, these Jewish Palestinians didn't stand a hope against 5 invading armies. And so the expectation amongst the Muslim Palestinians was that, once the Jewish Palestinians are all killed or driven out, we can come back, we'll have even more land. But unfortunately, didn't work out that way. And so Israel had established itself. Then in 1967, there was another war called the Six-Day War. And this time, Israel had to fight off 3 armies. It was not 5 against 1 this time, it was 3 against 1: Egypt, Syria, and Jordan. Israel was at war with those 3. And from Egypt, Israel captured the Gaza Strip as well as the Sinai Peninsula. From Jordan, they captured the western bank of the Jordan River, what's called Judea Samaria. They captured that, and they captured East Jerusalem. And from the Syrians, they captured the Golan Heights. And so from that point forward, this Palestinian identity started to take root, because prior to that war, prior to 1967, those living in Gaza were under Egyptian rule. Those living on the western bank of the Jordan River, they were under Jordanian rule. And now it was Israeli territory. Anyway, that's how Gaza came to be in a possession of Israel. But in 2005, Israel completely disengaged from the Gaza Strip. They'd already given the Sinai Peninsula back to the Egyptians during the 1978 or 1979 Camp David peace agreement between U.S. President Jimmy Carter, Egyptian President Anwar Sadat, and Israeli Prime Minister Menachem Begin. So that part was dealt with. And in 2000, but they still maintain control over Gaza. It's widely reported that the Israelis tried to give the Egyptians the Gaza Strip back as well, but the Egyptians didn't want it because they saw the population there as having ties to the Muslim Brotherhood, and they were afraid that the population in the Gaza Strip would be too destabilizing for their nation. So they said, you can keep Gaza. We don't want those people. We'll take Sinai, but we don't want Gaza. We don't want the people of the Gaza Strip being being part of Egypt. And you can look that up. At any rate, so in 2005, Israel completely disengaged from from the Gaza Strip. They had 20 or more permanent settlements, and every all Jewish Israelis were forced to leave. Some of them against their will. Some did not go willingly. They also removed all their military infrastructure, and they handed it over to the people of Gaza and said, "You can govern yourselves." And the people of Gaza had an election in 2006. They elected Hamas to be the governing authority. There was a bit of an internal battle between Hamas and another group, Fatah, but Hamas won that battle and they established control over the Gaza Strip in 2007. And they received billions of dollars in international aid through various NGOs and such, and as well through private fundraising, billions of dollars poured into the Gaza Strip. And it's long been noted by many people that that money could have been used to create, something of something like a Singapore, a small nation state, tons of money, beautiful real estate on the coast of the Mediterranean Sea. Could have been, I don't know if it would ever be paradise, but it was. There were projections that it could have been like that, but Hamas has, as part of their founding charter, what they call the Covenant of Hamas. They want everything. They want everything from the river to the sea. And many people don't know that the river is the Jordan River and the sea is the Mediterranean. And so what they want it all. They want all of Israel. They do not want a two-state solution. And when they launched their attack on October 7th, killing those 1,200 Israelis, and then dragging 250 or so men, women, and children, including babies, committing a war crime, kidnapping infants, dragging them back into Gaza. In the wake of that attack, their senior leadership said, "This is just the beginning. We're taking it all. This is rise up. Islamic world, Muslim world, rise up. We're going to take it to these occupiers and we're going to wipe them out from the river to the sea." And now we're at the present day. And Israel is going to defend itself. It's not going to allow itself to be wiped off the map from the river to the sea. Jagmeet Singh and the NDP, they believe what Israel is doing is, that it qualifies as genocide. Mark Carney kind of talks out of both sides of his mouth. It's like he can't decide, it depends what group he's talking to. If he's talking to an Islamic group, he'll sound almost pro Gaza. Yeah. And if he's talking to a Jewish group, then he'll sound all pro Israel. Pierre Poilievre, the only two I find consistent on this are Pierre Poilievre and Jagmeet Singh. I do happen to agree with Pierre Poilievre. It is not the top of mind issue for me, but I am informed on it. And I welcome the comments down below. Fire away, even if you disagree with me. I'm willing to engage. All I ask is that it be respectful and that you respect historical facts. Everything I've just enumerated here, the 1948-1949 war, that first Arab-Israeli war, the 1967 war. I didn't mention the war of 1973, the Yom Kippur War. That was another three against one war when Israel had a surprise attack launched against it on Yom Kippur, the holiest day on the Jewish calendar, when everyone was in synagogue, praying, whatever. I don't know if there's a Yom Kippur meal. I'm not Jewish, I'm Christian. A surprise attack was launched by Syria. They wanted their Golan Heights back. By Jordan, they wanted the western bank of the Jordan River and East Jerusalem back, and the Egyptians who wanted the Sinai Peninsula back. And it seems like they never really cared about Gaza, but they wanted Sinai back. And these are all simply easily verifiable historical facts from multiple sources. So if you're going to confront me, no problem. Differing opinions are allowed. But let's stick to historical fact and leave feelings and emotion out of it as much as possible. So God bless. Thank you for watching. Again, I invite you to like, share, subscribe to my channel. I discuss history, news, and current events, but quite often you need a historical context to realize what's going on today. And I encourage you to get out to the polls on Monday and vote. Vote, vote, vote. And we're going to find out whether the polls all seem to be indicating that we're looking at a liberal government. That's what all the polling outfits seem to be saying, and they seem to be saying that on the nightly news. That's my read of it. Are they right? We'll find out on Monday. I think there's very much potential for a surprise, and I won't be that surprised, but I will be relieved. I already voted conservative. I want the conservatives to win. I want Pierre Poilievre to be prime minister of this country. I do not like Mark Carney. He lied about his conversation with Donald Trump. He lied about the letter that he sent to Brookfield shareholders, encouraging them to move high-paying Canadian jobs at the Brookfield headquarters, to take that headquarters and move it down to Donald Trump's old stomping grounds in New York City. And he lied to Canadians, tried to make it seem like, well, that I didn't have anything to do with that. Well, really, you sent a letter to shareholders urging them to vote in favor of this move. You didn't have anything to do with it, Mark, really. Odd. And he refuses to disclose his assets to Canadians like all the other leaders have. Jagmeet Singh, Yves-François Blanchet, Pierre Poilievre, they've all disclosed to Canadians their assets that they have. Mark Carney is like, no, I get to keep mine secret. I've got another 60 days. I'll keep them hidden until after the election. Then you can see them after you've made your decision. If you're a conservative and voting in this election, please get someone to go out, find a friend. Someone who doesn't vote, someone who doesn't follow the political process. Tell them why you're voting conservative. Ask them to help you out. Can you help me out and vote conservative as well? You'll be surprised. You'll get some people to do it. They'll be like, yeah, why not? I've never voted before. A lot of people don't. It's probably 30% of the population eligible to vote doesn't show up. Maybe you can get one, get two, get three. Get them out to the polls. Get them to mark their X. Explain to them how it works. Simple paper ballot in our federal elections. No machines, just a piece of paper with the candidates' names and circles corresponding to each candidate. And all you have to do is clearly mark an X in the candidate of your choice. And if you don't know who the conservative candidate is in your riding, when you get that ballot, it will say a name and the party affiliation. So just find the name with Conservative Party of Canada written along with it and put your X in that box. Bob's your uncle, and hopefully we can restore some hope instead of the politics of fear. We're in a crisis. We're in a crisis. Crisis Carney or hopeful Pierre Poilievre. Do you want to vote for hope or do you want to vote for out of fear? Anyway, enough advertising for the Conservative Party of Canada. God bless. Thank you for watching. Like, share, subscribe, and comment. All right, we'll talk to you later. Good